1% of dudes rapping, they ain't nice as me. 98% ain't live the same type of life as me. The judge gave me life and then they sent me where the life is be. That level 4 with depth and vice, the type of stuff they like to see. Two choices, fight or flee. I refuse to die a chump. I never been a mark, but damn, it's scary when that riot jump. I seen dudes cry, get pumped, and some sexually brutalized. Knew a dude who lost his life and he was only doing 5 year-long racial fights when homie all you do is ride. Lonely days and nights up in a hole causing suicide. From the moment you arrive, you see the Mexican mafia, AB skinheads with big giant swastikas, pro-black philosophers, the BGF, the Kumi, and Muslims who will murk you from the nation to the Sunni. That MS was loony, quick to ride up on they rival. Even Christians went to church, hide knives up in a Bible. Political and tribal, the Crips and Damus, the Long Beach, the Hubs and the Dubs and the Grooves, the IE, the Bakersfield, the Dago Pyrus, the Hustlers quick.
Say what's cracking, YouTube. If you like that intro song that I use at the beginning of my videos, it's now available on a 10-song EP, and you can get it on digital download. Hit me up on Instagram at 16tolife, that's 16DALIFE, or you can email me at 16tolifemusic@gmail.com. Cash at me or Zelle me $20, and I'm going to shoot you the link for the digital download.
Have you ever been shot at in the course of your duties?
You know what? I've never been shot at, but I've been pretty close to gunshots. And what I mean by that, I remember my partner and I, we were stopped at the red light on what was that, Beverly and Union, and we just stopped there. We're in a westbound direction, man. And all of a sudden we hear gunshots and I see this guy's window shatter in front of me. These two knuckleheads were right there on the corner shooting at some guys on the corner. Didn't even see us. They didn't see us. So then we do a U-turn, put out a backup, and the passenger was the one doing the shooting. And, they were both out of there drunk, high. And, you could tell he's trying to hide the gun underneath the seat. So, they got out the car. We took him into custody, recovered the gun underneath the seat. So, but the scary part was, here we are, right across the street. He's shooting at some guys on the corner, and he don't see us. We hear the gunshot. We look over. This guy shot through his own window. So, these guys are crazy. They're out of their minds.
Now, were you working when they had the Rodney King riots?
Yes, I was working. Actually, the first night it started, I was actually off. And it was funny because I was hanging with a good friend of mine from New Jersey, and we were actually in the city of Inglewood, and we were at this soul food restaurant. It's no longer there. I believe it's called the Boulevard Cafe. But it was weird because we were in there having dinner, just talking, and this woman walks inside and she says, "Hey, did you hear the verdict?" And she says, "Yes." And she says, "Well, my son is at one of the rallies now." Now, me being a cop, my ears started to perk up a little bit. And that's when I see Inglewood PD. They're going back and forth, code 3, lights and sirens. They're just going back and forth. So once we were done eating there, we went to my buddy wanted to visit his girlfriend. So we drove down the street. I think we were like on, I don't know, Crenshaw, maybe 110th, 109th, somewhere in there. And we walk into the living room and her dad is watching, shit burn all around us. Shit burn. So she asked us to leave because they wanted to go out and find her sister. So we're driving up Century because I need to check in. I need to make sure that my department or my division hasn't called me yet. So I'm still living with my grandmother. So I get back to Compton, and there used to be a Foot Locker right there on Rosecrans and Central. And I drove past that thing, and it was still standing. Checked in with my grandparents. "Hey, anyone call for my job?" They said no. I said, "Well, I'm going to take my buddy back home." Well, he was staying in Lakewood at the time, so I had to drive back to Lakewood. And, man, when I got back to Compton, man, that Foot Locker was gone. Woke up the next morning because it was time for me to go to work. So driving, I didn't have to take the freeway at the time. I would always take the streets. And, man, these guys were just tearing shit up, man. Just tearing shit up all around me. From Compton all the way to, all the way through South L.A., all the way to Dinker and MLK, man. Second I get inside the station, They gave me a shotgun, tell me to go up on the roof. And my first assignment was, I was station security. So I was on the roof for 12 hours with a shotgun because they thought the station would be attacked. But after that, I was in a car and we just cruised around, like martial law. The National Guard was out. And they did a number on the city. They tore the city up. People were mad. People were angry. That was the end result.
Did you ever have to encounter anyone that you had grew up with, and how did they react or anything like that?
I knew one cat. He used to sleep in class. I won't say his name, but I remember he was always high, man. He'd be smoking that weed, man. He'd come in class and just sit in the back and put his head down. So one day we just booked our buddy at the glass house. We're walking out, and I see these two officers dragging this one cat in, and he can't even stand, but I knew him. So I walk up to him. I walk up to the officers and I say, "Hey, man, what you guys get him for?" And I guess he had ran over some kids in a crosswalk, and then he tried to run away. Well, they caught him, but they had to drag him in the glass house. But I'm like, I know that guy. I knew him well. He was a cool, low key guy, but all he wanted to do was get high and do him, I guess. Right. And let me go back as far as the gangs are concerned. You were mentioning more Asian gangs. Well, it's funny because in the city of Carson, it was weird because once you start going south, then you start seeing more mixture and diversity among the gangs. Like, for example, the Samoans, you have a lot of Samoan bloods in the city of Carson. Lots of Samoan bloods in the city of Carson. You do have some Asian. I think you have some Asian and even some Asian and Filipino bloods in the city of Carson. So the gangs start becoming a little bit more diverse the further south you went. Even San Pedro, you have a Crip set. Well, this was back in the 80s. You had a Crip set out there called in the 80s they were calling themselves the Second Street Mob, and then later they were called the Dodge City Crips. And I have a funny story about those guys. Thank God it turned out good for me. But yeah, you would see it more. You see Hispanic bloods, some white bloods, some Asian bloods. Even in Wilmington, you started to see more of that, where the gangs started becoming more diverse. So that was interesting to me because I didn't think, as far as gangs were concerned, and especially headed south back in the 1980s, I didn't think the gangs were so active. I started going to high school down there in 80, went to Banning, 85. And I didn't know Wilmington that well. And I really didn't know San Pedro that well. And I didn't know the gangs were so active down there until I got down there. And I found out, like, man, these guys are just as active as the guys in, South LA. They're more diverse.
Now, do you think that growing up in the urban community around that type of atmosphere that gave you any type of advantage or made you a little more vigilant as opposed to maybe a white officer who wasn't from the urban areas?
Well, you know what? The cool part is just knowing your location. As a police officer, you better know where you're at, because if it goes down, you're going to need some help, backup. And that's a life and death situation. But as far as the gangs, man, it just seems like I always felt like I was a gang expert before I even came on the job, just because of my environment.
Right.
So I think it gives you a little bit of edge because you learn to read the walls. What gangs are kind of going at it with each other. And then especially if you're in a particular area, you got to kind of, once again, keep your head on the swivel, because sometimes these guys are so, they want to get their enemy so bad, they don't even bother to look and to recognize that, hey, there's a cop car right down the street. And then you're shooting at these guys, a couple of 100 feet away.
Right.
So you can get caught up real fast.
And you just mentioned something that was very profound for those who were in that street life and who were in the know and knowledgeable about gangs and so on and so forth, you said you would need to know how to read the walls. Now, for a person who was not involved in that lifestyle, that phrase and saying may have went totally over his head. So explain in depth what reading the walls is and what you could learn from reading the walls.
Gangs mark their territory. We all know that, they mark their territory. And when you have a rival gang come into your territory and maybe cross out your gang or cross out the members of that gang, well, that's a major offense to them. And because of that, that's where the drive-bys occur. So when you see that, you have to be aware of it. You have to make a mental note, because that's a big deal to the gangs, in their culture, that if you cross out our gang, we'll shoot you for it. Sad but true.
Right.
And then you learn the members. These guys like to write the different members' names on the wall, the nicknames, and you start adding names to faces or nicknames to faces. You start knowing who's who.
And I think right now it seems like there's a lot of interest in, and like you said, it all comes from the prison, but there's a lot of interest in the Mexicans and the blacks and what's going on. You had not too long ago some young gang being interviewed, and they said that they were NK and this and that. Did you ever in your experience, did you ever encounter NK on the wall? And if so, what did you believe as an officer, and through your intel, what did you believe it meant?
Well, when it became racial, I knew what it meant. It's NK, NIGGA, killer. That's what it is.
Right.
That's what it is. But I'll tell you this, Chill. I was never offended by it, because when you choose to partake in that life, that gang life, that's what comes with it. Everything, all the negative comes with it. All of that comes with it. You're crossing out neighborhoods. You're calling this person this. You're calling this person that. But in reality, to me, all roads lead to the California Department of Correction. I don't care if you're a black gangster or a Mexican gangster. It's all going to lead to that California Department of Correction.
And so, of course, I always like to be fair here. And so, did you also see disparaging things on the wall from black gangs in reference to Mexican gangs?
It goes both ways. Goes both ways. Everything that you guys are watching on social media, everyone's guilty. It's going both ways.
Now, let me ask you a question here now, because you have a lot of people in the areas where you did have a lot of racial beef going on. I would see many of them complain or whatever. It said that basically the news was trying to hide the fact that, different gangs from different races were going at it with each other and stuff. Do you feel that element of it was was being hid?
Well, what the media, they're trying to portray it as just straight racial. They're not mentioning the gangs, because if you mention the gangs, then it doesn't sound so racial. But they would always depict it as blacks and Latinos.
Uh-huh.
They don't mention, well, this is a Crip and Blood problem. This is a Crip versus Florencia problem, or they don't mention it like that. These are two gangs. You Crips, they're predominantly black. Of course, any one of the Latino gangs or the Mexican gangs, of course, they're predominantly Mexican. But instead of saying, hey, you know what? We have a gang problem. These two gangs just happen to be different ethnicities. No, they come out and say, blacks versus Latinos, or Latinos versus blacks, because that's what the media, that's what they love to do.
Right.
They created, in my opinion, they created a whole lot of drama by depicting the crimes that way. And that's why you had kids in high school who are not even gang members acting the way they're behaving, because now it's not just the Crips versus, Florence, or the Crips versus the Playboys or whoever. Oh, now it's black versus Latino. And it's sad because we all fall for it.
Right.
Everybody falls for it instead of just slowing down and really stepping back and taking a look at the situation.
So unfortunately, it was pretty much just a gang problem that spilled over to race.
Yes. It was a gang problem. It's a gang problem. Now I can't speak for what goes on, from what I've heard and from what everyone on these podcasts have been teaching us, and they've been teaching me a lot too, that once you hit the California Department of, everyone's segregated. The blacks are over here, the Hispanics, the whites, the Asians, or, everyone's got their own little section and they have to stay there. Segregated, outright segregated, like it was the 1940s or something. And that's crazy, Right. Especially in a state like California, where we're the most liberal, left-leaning state in the country. But inside the prisons, everything's segregated.
Well, it's funny that you say that, California is an extremely liberal state and stuff like that. A lot of individuals who I have encountered from down south, they actually say California is more racist than down south. The analogy that they would make is the only thing is in down south, you know exactly what you're getting.
Right.
In California, they would say the racism is hidden.
Exactly. And the funny part is, Chill, it doesn't matter if your best friend was white or your best friend was Mexican or whatever when you guys were growing up. If you get caught up and you end up in that system, no, you got to go with your people. And like I said, that's what you guys have taught us doing, with your podcast, because truth be told, I've heard a lot of talk, listening to everyone's podcast about who's a PC, who's a S&Y and everything. I never even heard of an S&Y yard. No, I never heard of that. I heard of somebody being in protective custody. But, when you're a regular police officer out here in the street, we don't, that doesn't matter to us, We don't know who's a PC and who did time, we don't, that has nothing to do with us. But it seems like in that world, that's a big deal,
And in your opinion, how much of did this beef between gangs spill over and affect civilians, non-gang members, regardless of the race?
It's sad because, like I said, I'm against gangs 110% because it's sad, because what our communities have to go through, what our kids have to deal with is sad, and it affects everyone. It affected my family, I have my brother. He was doing his thing. I'm not going to tell his story, but God rest his soul. He was doing his thing. And I had to deal with that too, because I'm a police officer, and they had a lot of questions. They had a lot of questions to ask me because of what my brother was involved in. But it affects our families. But it's sad that the innocent have to be caught up in this. And it's sad when you have these gang members, when they choose to do it, to pick on a civilian. Why pick on a civilian? If you're a gang member and you really have it in for the other gang, why don't you just deal with that person? Why pick on an innocent person who had nothing to do with anything? They're just passing through. They're just standing on the bus stop. But unfortunately, it doesn't work like that, because innocent people were murdered on both sides. On both sides, innocent people were robbed and murdered on both sides.
And to me, from the point of a person who was in a gang and so on and so forth, I guess I was raised in a different time period. I honestly never understood that either, because like we said before, it's a gang problem that has spilled outside, and now it's onto racial lines. And then also from a gang member's point, if you are intentionally targeting a person who is a non-civilian specifically because of the race, it does nothing to help the gang, because the gang member is still out there.
It's cowardly, man. It's cowardly. You can't describe it any other way. It's a cowardly punk move. Cowardly punk ass move. Leave civilians alone.
Because
Leave them alone.
the civilians aren't shooting at your gang and harming your gang anyway. So I mean, if you have a problem with a gang member, go get that gang member, regardless of, I mean, whatever color he may be. And so that's really the sad part as well. But you know, of course, one side does it, then the other side, of course, gets angry, emotional, upset, and then they do it, and then it's now you got people who didn't sign up for this stuff being affected.
Leave civilians alone. Plain and simple. Leave the civilians alone.
Right. And so have you ever maybe encountered a gang member who happened to be shot and now he's basically, you know, he's fearful, he's concerned with his life and stuff like that?
Of course, man. You know, most people who join gangs, you know, they're young. You know, they're young. Most people, you know, and if they were really hardcore, yeah, they end up going through it, man. You know, they go inside the penitentiaries or the jails, and they come out and they change. And there's nothing wrong with changing. You know,
right.
Change is a damn good thing. Like, that's why I love these prison podcasts so much, because you guys that have been there, done that, you're telling these young kids, hey, you don't want to go there. This is what is going to happen. And it's cool because it's coming from people who actually been there and done that. It's not coming from some journalists from God knows where. It's coming from people who's actually been there and done that from every neighborhood. And you guys are telling them what the end results are.
Right.
You know, and everybody can change, man. Everybody makes mistakes. Everybody can change. You know, I have a funny story. I won't mention his name, but guy that used to cut my hair when I did have hair. Well, he used to cut my hair, and I used to sit in his barber chair all the time. And he told me, man, he'd been there, done that. You know, been to the penitentiary, you know, out there gang banging, dope, drugs. He did it. This man's in his 70s, but he has a horse. And he would take his horse to the park every weekend, and he would let the little kids, you know, ride the horse and sit on the horse and pet the horse and everything. And there's this one little girl that really became fond of this horse, and she was there all the time. Well, when she moved, she would come back to California to see the horse. But the beautiful thing is, man, she's an adult now, and guess what she is? She's a veterinarian.
Mm.
And I told my man, I said, hey man, you did that, because he was kind of down on himself, because he felt that he threw his life away because of the stuff that he was involved in. And I said, man, no, you did that. I said, if it wasn't for you and that horse, that girl probably wouldn't have never, you know, ever decided to become a veterinarian.
Right. And
you know, so
I just wanted to include that you made a great point that a lot of individuals who join gangs are young. You know, we're extremely young. We're impressionable at that time. We're trying to fit in and so on and so forth. And it's amazing because in the last, I would say, 2025, so maybe in the last 15 years, California Department of Corrections have been releasing a large amount of lifers compared to when I initially came. And so I run into these lifers. You know, a lot of us keep in touch with each other here and there. They have lifer parties. And it's amazing now how many of these lifers now are involved in some type of work giving back to the community. Because
they have to be, man. They have to be. They need to talk. They have to talk to these kids more, especially the kids that are headed, you know, that are on the fence and they're headed in that direction, man. Because the kids and the teenagers, listen to them. They don't. Right. They really, honestly, you know, and I hate to say it, but it's true. It's a fact, man. You know, being a police officer, you're looked at as the enemy. Nobody wants to talk to us.
Oh, most definitely. Most definitely.
Nobody wants to talk to us. No one wants to be seen talking to us. But, you know, even when I was in the field, man, you know, it was cool to be able to pull, you know, people to the side and try to, you know, hey, man, you know, find something else to do, you know. And today, in 2025, man, there's really no excuse. I mean, look at the technology. You can get a damn college degree from home. You know, there's so much you can learn. There's no need to be out in the streets.
Right.
You know, no need to be out there because we already said it earlier. Everyone's snitching. Everyone has a camera. You're not going to get away with it. And as far as them giving out years, they're giving out football numbers.
Oh, Most definitely. I don't know
Yeah,
what year it was. Maybe I want to say maybe 2001, 2002, or whatever it was when California increased the sentencing laws and
right,
all that stuff. The felons being caught with guns. Nowadays, you'll get way more time
right.
for possession of a gun and an attempted murder than you would back in my day. Nowadays you attempt to kill somebody, man, you liable to get 85, 95 to life for missing a person. So the laws are extremely tough.
And
And
chill. Check this out, chill. Mr. Trump is in the White House.
right.
He's not just gonna focus on that border. He's not just gonna focus on that border. I'm telling you, man. You know, the DAs, prosecutors, they're gonna start putting people. They're gonna warehouse people.
And
They're
let
gonna warehouse people, man.
me ask you a question. I believe you were working when we had a very extremely unfortunate incident occur out there in Los Angeles when I believe it was Chief Parks when his granddaughter was killed. Were you working still in that time?
I was on a job, but I was working Central Bureau. I think, unfortunately, where she got murdered. Condolences to her family. That occurred in Central. No, I'm sorry, South Bureau. I don't really know the details, but of course it was all over the news. I don't know the details. I don't know who she was with or why they were targeted. But it happened, I believe, in South Bureau.
And when something like that happens, I can only assume that it really changes the morale of the police officer. Well, I want to assume that it galvanizes them and just make them really want to go hard on gang members. And for those briefly who quickly don't know, Chief Parks, his granddaughter, was in the car. Some gang member happened. She was in the car with the gang member. It's alleged. Another gang member seen the gang member that he had a problem with. He went to attempt to shoot him in a drive-through, and he ended up killing the chief of police's granddaughter, who I think was maybe 19 years old, 18, somewhere around there, just came home from college. So I'm assuming stuff like that really makes it, hard on gang members.
And you know what, Chill? Tons. It's always the same scenario. The guys that are shooting at the dude, they end up hitting the passenger. It happens all the time. All the time. And a lot of it is gang related, Maybe her man was involved in the gang. She's riding with her man and the enemies. They see him. Of course, they shoot at him, and of course they hit her. It happens all the time.
Right.
All the time. And it's sad. It's really sad.
And another situation that was in the news, Officer Christopher Dorner, when he went on that rampage and started, shooting officers and targeting their families and stuff. Were you working? So you still was employed with the force at that time, right?
Yes, I'll tell you. I was in Central Bureau. Like I said, I was a collision investigator by then. And actually that night I was working by myself. I was actually on a traffic stop over in Echo Park, over on Montana and Glendale. And my watch commander told me to head into the station. I had no clue why, but he said, you got to come into the station. So the guy I was talking to, I let him go, headed into the station, and they told me what was going on. I guess this guy was out shooting anything and everybody, and he was really aiming at police officers. Him being an ex-police officer himself. Mm-hmm. I never met him. I never even seen him. I take that back. I think I did see him one time in the jail. But I think he was on probation at the time, and I was booking my body, and I think he was doing something else. But I never met him personally. I never knew him, but that was an unfortunate incident also.
And when you just said something, you just brought a memory back to my mind. So did you say you had pulled over somebody and you was talking to him when you got the call from the
on a traffic stop? Montana and Glendale Boulevard over in Echo Park, and talking to this guy, and my watch commander said, respond back to the station. That's what I did. So I let the guy go. There was no citation or anything. Just,
that reminded me of a time when I happened to be in L.A. It had to be like 93, late or early 94. I was on the run, actually. I was on the run for attempted murder. Possibly I was on the run for the murder as well by then. I can't remember, but I was definitely on the run for the 3 attempted murders I had. I got a gun on me. The police pulled me over. They're talking to me and stuff. And suddenly they get a call. They had to go do something. I was in the car with my girlfriend and her sister. We was going to the movies, and man, I felt lucky that night. It was like a movie. It was like stuff you see in the movie. I think he was just getting ready to tell me to get out. He gets a call and he takes off and he leaves. I felt blessed that night.
Well, police officers, when they're not handling calls, the city's busy, so very seldom do you even get to do a traffic stop, man, because you're running from one call to another all night long. But there are times when, it slows down a little bit. So, cops do what cops do. They're driving through your alleys, driving up and down your streets, and, they're pulling over cars. That's what we're really supposed to be doing. But, traffic stops next to domestic violences, dangerous, man. Dangerous, because you don't know who you're pulling over, what they're carrying, or what they were just involved in. If you have that mentality that, hey, you know what, this guy just ran a red light or a stop sign, and you think you're just walking up there just to write a ticket. No, the guy could have just shot somebody. He could have done a number of things involving a gun, and here you come. And he was like, well, hey, man, you know what? I'm not going back to the penitentiary. I'm going to hold court right here in the street. And that's how it happens.
Do you recall of any incidents like that when you were working, where maybe somebody you was in the academy with, or an officer that you knew ran across somebody who just was unwilling to go to jail that night?
Yeah, you get those incidents. You get. I'll give you one of ours. Thank God the guy didn't start shooting. Like I said, I worked morning watch, and back then morning watch was from 10 at night to 7 in the morning. Back then. And we were on a traffic stop. And back then in South LA, we didn't approach cars at night. We would call the driver out. So we're on Dinker. We make the traffic stop. Dinker, I think it was Dinker and Jefferson. Make the traffic stop. I'm the passenger. My partner, he's driving, of course. He orders the driver out, has the driver stand on the sidewalk, put his hands on his head, of course. I'm watching the driver. He walks up to the driver's side to clear the car, and there's a damn shotgun across the seat, loaded. Why are you carrying the shot? Oh, somebody's after me. So these guys out here carrying guns. That's why I said it's dangerous. Some guys, they pull over and they comply, but you always have that 1% that says, "Hey, man, I'm not going back to prison, so I'm gonna deal with it right here."
Right.
And that's how the shootings occur. Domestic violences. People are upset. You get there, he's upset, she's upset. He doesn't want to leave. It's his house. He's mad, and he's going to hold court right there. And that's how they occur. And it can occur in seconds. Man.
And I have one last question for you, and I'm going to let you get out of here. The Rampart scandal. Was it Rafael Perez? Was that his name?
Officer Rafael Perez. Now, I would run into Rafael in the field.
So you encountered him?
I encountered Rafael. I used to encounter him a lot. Now, I never worked with him. I was never assigned to Rampart because, once again, because of my assignment, I'm all over the bureau. And in Central Bureau, you have the Rampart area. You have Central area, which is downtown. You have the Hollenbeck area, which is in Boyle Heights. You have Northeast, which is in Highland Park. And you have the Newton area, which is in South LA, the low bottoms, what we were talking about. And if we hear backup or help calls, and if we're in the area, we're going to respond. Maybe, there were, 90s, there were a lot of pursuits. There was a lot of things happening in Rampart. So we were all over. There was always backups. There were always pursuits, so we were always there. And that's where we would make our contact with Rafael, or if we went into Rampart Station, you would see him inside. And he was, I thought he, before this crap that went on with him, he appeared to be a pretty good street cop. And what I mean by that, he was, he was doing his job, bringing in the bodies. He was booking people. He was always busy. He was always busy. But unfortunately, he threw his career away, and he ruined a bunch of lives.
Now looking back on that, let me address that real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess this is all in the same vein. Looking back on that, how often do you think that happened? And then, like you said, people don't realize for those who because you do have innocent people go to jail at times, right? And I don't think people quite understand that when an innocent person does go to jail, maybe for a corrupt officer planning something or lying on him, it can pretty much ruin his life. This dude could be the only provider for his family. He could be in a household where he's co-provider, and the money that he's providing is essential in helping keep a roof over that head. So possibly, the family is broke up. The kids may have to go there. The kids may have to go there. He may only stay in jail for 2 or 3 weeks and just lose his job. So do you think that is was a serious problem, or do you think that corrupt officers are, it's just a select few?
Corruption is corruption. And if you're a corrupt cop, you do not need to be in the field. You do not need to be on the police department. Point blank in the story. And like we talked about earlier, Chill, cop or crook. If you're out there in the streets doing dirt, eventually you will get got. If you're lucky, you end up going to prison. If you're unlucky, you end up being 6 feet under.
No.
But no, my attitude was no, you don't have to plant guns or dope, beat or kick anybody. You don't. Do your job. What is your department policy? Do your job. Do you have probable cause? Learn what probable cause is. Do your job. Because like I said, this is no time to be screwing around, man. They will put your ass in a federal penitentiary. and they will keep you in there,
right?
For real, and that's real. I'm not, because I'm not gonna sit here. Like I said, I was a police officer for 32 years. There's no way in hell I'm gonna sit here and try to justify a corrupt cop. Who wants a corrupt cop? My family is still in Los Angeles. My friends, my family. I don't want any corrupt cop having any interactions with my friends and my family. Corrupt cops are dangerous because of the authority we have. We have a lot of authority with very little supervision.
Right.
And like-minded cops will do like-minded things. If you have 2 corrupt cops, man, they can wreak havoc. Man. They really, truly can. But I'll tell you one thing, and I'll say it again. Once they find you, man, they throw the book at you. If you embarrass the department, the district attorneys, they can't wait to throw you in the penitentiary. Under color of authority, your ass going to the penitentiary.
And I think that's true in this day and age more so than opposed to maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago. And then by you working 32 years, William, I'm sure you've heard it say that the police officers from the Los Angeles Police Department were actually LA's biggest and most feared gang, and I think you had a lot of.
I heard that. I used to hear that when I was a kid. Our department had a really, really aggressive reputation. LA County Sheriff, Los Angeles Police Department, that's no secret, They had an aggressive reputation. Now, as far as the racism, come on, think about it. How far does racism go back? Racism goes back all the way to the slave ships.
Right.
Goes back. Institutionalized racism, I'm gonna say no, and I'll tell you why I say no, because I was practically raised by my grandparents, and my grandparents told me about some real racism. What people are calling racism today, I laugh in their face. It's not racism today. Your ass just lazy. Your ass is just lazy. These kids not even trying today. You know, I just, like I said, I've never experienced it. I can't control what people say behind my back. You know, you don't
Right.
want to work with me. If you don't want to be my friend, okay, I'm over here, you over there. But if you try some slick shit with me, I'm gonna be on you. I'm gonna be on you. I'm not
And
gonna let it slide.
and you know what? I think that, of course, a lot of people's problems with police officers, because even if they weren't the ones who was like involved in
Right.
the corruption or the beating or harming or violating the rights, you had a lot of them who would stand around while it went on, and so it made them complicit. If you witness this type of stuff and you don't say anything, then you're complicit. And we feel that the don't snitch factor is just as big in the
The thin
culture.
blue, the thin blue line you're talking.
Right. And so
Hmm.
what is your feelings on that for officers who stand around and watch corruption?
Oh man, that's stuff you can't do that anymore. You're in trouble too. If your partner is getting out of hand, you better jump in there, man, and pull him back because it's not just him; it's going to be you also.
Did you ever have any partners you had to restrain or had to say once you guys got in the car, hey man, that last stop was uncool, or I didn't like that, or
Oh, we always talk about our traffic stops and what we do afterwards. But I had a real good friend, and we were pretty much partners our whole career, and we both had an understanding. And our understanding was, hey man, we're not losing our career, and we ain't doing 20 for nobody. We're not doing 20 for nobody. You
right,
know, and that's how we worked it. So I'm not gonna let this guy beat the heck out somebody, and then I'm standing there. Now I'm in trouble too. Oh no, you got to jump in. You got to do something.
right.
Like I said, you don't have to plant dope on anybody. You don't have to do any of that because some of these guys out here, they need to go to jail. They need to sit down and cool off, man, because if they keep doing what they're doing, somebody gonna get them. And like I said, we're doing them a favor sometime. When I cuff you up and take you to jail, I'm doing you a favor. Cool your heels, man, because you keep doing dirt out in these streets and you're going to get got.
Right.
There's no other way to put it, you know?
Well, William, hey, I really appreciate you coming on, man, and sharing your experiences, your stories and stuff.
Anytime, bro. Thanks for
Yeah,
having me, man.
it was really, really pleasant to interview you, man.
Thank
And
you.
thank you. Like I say, thank you once again. I think the viewers will definitely enjoy this. I got a
Thank
good
you.
friend of mine who I'll tell you about once we get off. He has a show too, PNG News Media, and I just have a feeling he may like to interview. He's a guy up out of Chicago. Actually, he
Okay.
gave me my first interview. Real good brother, man. He
Okay.
has a lot of good interviews. For you guys that's watching, go check his page out. It's PNG News Media. He always has a lot of interesting interviews, man. And
All
anyway,
right.
thank you once again, William, for coming, man. I really appreciate it.
Okay. Hey, Chill. Can I give one shout out?
Oh, hey, say anything you want to say.
Okay, man. I got to give a shout out to a couple of other podcasters, man. And I know this is one guy that a lot of people just don't like and they don't agree with. But I truly believe that he is really trying to let people know about these particular organizations in the gang life and what it would lead to. And that's my man Jay Hands from Renegade Media. I got to give that dude a shout out, man. It's a lot more that I'd like to give a shout out to. I think I'd like to see more. I would like to see more. These guys are OGs. I would like to see more from Bam. I would like to see more from Gangster from Santana. I'd like to see more from these guys, man. Really get into these young guys' ears and just really let them know what's going on out here.
Right.
Really, you know. And Chill, man. Shit, man, you're off the chain, man. You're doing an excellent job. I'll always support your channel.
I appreciate it, man. I appreciate you for supporting my channel, for watching me, for reaching out to me, buying my music, all that type of stuff, man.
Okay, my brother.
All right, enjoy the rest of your night.
Take care.
All right, you as well.
Later.
All right, later.
These niggas ain't who they say they is, so beware. Fuck what they sayin', cause these cowards ain't playing fair. They shoot at you shoot at them, they snitch, and they don't care. Fuck gang banging, I'd rather be a square. These niggas ain't who they say they is, so beware. Fuck what they sayin', cause these cowards ain't playing fair. They shoot at you shoot at them, they snitch, and they don't care. Fuck gang banging, I'd rather be a square. Yeah. I swear to God, the game is cold, homie.
What you mean?
I popped on a pussy ass nigga after he stole on me.
What happened next?
That nigga came to court and told on me.
Put that on something.
I sold my soul, homie. Called the highway patrol on me, plus the sheriffs and cops. He told him my name was Eric and I carried a Glock. Soon as you start blowing shots, them niggas going to tell. Don't have a meeting with the cops and then you going to jail. They'll tell him about the shooting, take him, show him his well. DA trying to see your cash, they gon' throw him the nails. They wanna throw me up in the cell and have me with a L again. Back to strip searchers and guards, read my mail again. Had me far away in the bay, I'm talking Pelican. Eating cold ass soy burgers and warm gelatin. I'm far too intelligent to fall for that twice. Niggas yelling gang gang and ain't about that life. And they'll turn rat right in front of your face. Get you found guilty plus 100 years on the case. Your mama in the court with tears running all on her face. Her baby shackled feet, hands and waist.
Goddamn.
These niggas ain't who they say they is, so beware. Fuck what they sayin', cause these cowards ain't playing fair. They shoot at you shoot at them, they snitch, and they don't care. Fuck gang banging, I'd rather be a square. These niggas ain't who they say they is, so beware. Fuck what they sayin', cause these cowards ain't playing fair. They shoot at you shoot at them, they snitch, and they don't care. Fuck gang banging, I'd rather be a square. Yeah. Doing life's no joke, I been where the apes been. You ain't really bout that smoke, you a vape pen. Soon as they catch a joke, in the feds on a state pen. That tough guy shit get shed quick like snake skin. Real and fake men can't exist together. I stay down, you turn snitch, so you a bitch forever. Imagine me snitch never, boy, I stuck to the code. You hit the county for a month, you said fucking and told. Soon as you heard your bitch Nicole was fucking all of your best friend. The news damn they killed you niggas, caved your chest in. You told about the murders that y'all did on the West End. Who was popping the burners and the one who said lesbian. Cooperated then, signed an affidavit. Felt your life was over, nigga, you was trying to save it. So you told on Antoine, LeBron, Marcus, and David. Came home and half your hood forgave it. Goddamn. These niggas ain't who they say they is, so beware. Fuck what they sayin', cause these cowards ain't playing fair. They shoot at you shoot at them, they snitch, and they don't care. Fuck gang banging, I'd rather be a square. These niggas ain't who they say they is, so beware. Fuck what they sayin', cause these cowards ain't playing fair. They shoot at you shoot at them, they snitch, and they don't care. Fuck gang banging, I'd rather be a square. Yeah.
Thank you.